right. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the Yama channel. This is last week's fights. My name is Thinker St. James, and I am joined, as always, with my good friend, the Ohio player, the man who is never impressed with your performance, Chase Parton. How you doing, brother?
Bro, I'm living. It's always a good one. We kind of had a weird week, with the rewatch and, no card, but I thought it was really, really fun. So I'm super excited to talk about it because I did not get to see it live.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different this week. We did not have a live event last weekend. This just past weekend. So we were granted a rewatch by the UFC. The UFC ran UFC 217 on their YouTube channel as a stream for everybody since there was no event. So we went back to the past with UFC 217. That's Bisping versus St-Pierre, and got to rewatch that for the first time for Chase, and a rewatch for myself. So this is kind of fun to be able to go back into the history a little bit and see an older event and, with fresh eyes, as it were, see where everybody is now versus where they were then. And, kind of just all of what has changed in the sport. There's so much difference always happening in the sport. So this is going back 7 years now. This was in 2017, right? So yeah, this is a while back. So good times there. And we're going to go through this event. We got a bunch to go over today because we're going to go through this. We're going to go through the Contender Series Week 3, and we're also going to take a look at UFC Vegas 97. That is Burns versus Brady. So whole bunch to jump into here. And let's get started, right? Let's take a look. Well, actually, before we even get started, though, the UFC was very kind to give this to us, and I do appreciate that. However, the streaming situation was all kinds of fucked up, bro. I mean, I assume that it was for everybody, right? You were dealing with that?
That was exactly the first point I wanted to make. Gracious that the UFC did this. They need to do this more often because It was a really fun time. But first, give us the non-commercial fucking version. Just get to the fights. Why am I watching 2017 commercials for movies that flopped? There's no reason for that. Second, start it at the fucking time you say. Tell me 6 o'clock. Show me on YouTube there's a timer at 6 o'clock. Why does it start at 7:30? And it started at 7, okay? I say 7:30 because it started halfway through the Curtis Blades and fucking Oleinik fight. Why? I don't know. I don't know why they were just magic. They thought they had it going. They were like, oh shit, we forgot to hit go on stream. Go, go, go. And then it's like halfway through of like Curtis like walking out and shit, something like that. And then they go back to the waiting screen. At 7:10, like halfway, we watched the fight. We watched the early stoppage. We'll get to it. Early, whatever the situation is, we'll talk about. They get through that to the first fight of the night, and obviously we know that the UFC doesn't give a fuck. So we have to watch the same situation again later after we watch it was a crazy situation.
Yeah.
7:30 was ridiculous to tell us it started at 6. We knew you were going to be late, obviously. You're always late, but 7:30. How does this happen? Did you lose the file? Was somebody going to get the file at 6? Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, I was anticipating kind of a nice leisurely stroll through these fights, 5 hour stream or so, hanging out. Shout out to all the new people that stopped by and subscribed and whatnot. Appreciate all of you. But either way, I mean, this turned into a 7 hour marathon of a stream because it took 2 hours to get through two fights, basically. Like, we started off, as he said, with the Curtis Blades fight. And that was fine, but then they restarted it again. Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened, is that they probably started it, I guess, on the back end or something like that, on the original start time. And then once they realized that that first fight had not been aired, they redid the entire thing to start it again. So yeah, this turned into quite the long haul for this card, but we got through. It was good in the end once everything was running smoothly. But man, it's like, I guess beggars can't be choosers. We can't really be too mad about it since it was a nice free re-airing of it. But at the same time, man, come on, please work it out, because that turned into a bit of a situation. We were talking about movies, we were talking about all kinds of different stuff that was not fight related.
You have no idea. I had your stream going, and I'm sitting here with the Discord. I'm like, guys, they're just talking about movies. They're talking about like their favorite movie. They're talking about music. I don't even know what they're talking about now. Like, guys, they do not care about UFC no more. Like, the ship has sailed. Like, I'm watching the numbers. It's like 1.3K waiting, right? And then it goes to like 900 waiting, 700. I'm like, they're losing the audience here. Like, what are you guys doing here? How do you fumble this bad? Because a lot of people did show up. It was a good move, and I think that they should realize, hopefully they don't fucking make these some paid fucking viewership type things, but it would be nice to keep getting some free cards. And I had a good time. And like you said, it was supposed to be a chill 4 hours, 5 hours, But man, I was telling you, right when the main card started, I was thinking like, I don't know, guys, we might not be able to make this one. It's long as shit tonight. Like, oh my God, it's 1 a.m. by the end. Like, oh my God.
Legit. It was an endurance run for sure. But it was nice to see these over again. And as you said, I do hope that they do that more often. I mean, especially with these older cards. I mean, they could be doing so much with, like, this is 217, but I mean, they could have been doing, in the 100s era, and that would have been fine too. Just going back, showing some people who are newer to the sport some of these older cards, especially in their entirety. They're like little time capsules, and it is nice to see where people are now versus where they were. And if we start with this first fight here, Ricardo Ramos is a great example of that, because what I said on the watch along, it's like this win, we'll talk about it, in detail here, but it's just crazy to think that I believe that he was like 10-1 or somewhere in that range for this fight. Talking about how he's champion material, this and that. And then we just saw recently at 305 that he was fighting on the prelims against Josh Kulabau. So didn't necessarily work out how he thought it would. Maybe there's still potential for him down the road. Who knows? But it is crazy to think that 7 years ago he was in that position and now he's where he is now. So, let's talk about this fight. This is Aiemann Zahabi versus Ricardo Ramos. What'd you think?
Ariel Helwani didn't really look like him at this time, which I don't know why he played more into it at this point. This was actually a really fun fight to start the card. Like, they really did come out there to slug. I didn't expect it from Zahabi because, like, I feel like what I know him now as wasn't a dude who was coming out here like this, and now you probably see why, is because he was getting dropped. But this was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, what I said about it, rewatching it, and I didn't. Yeah, there's a couple of them that I didn't remember all the details, of course.
Yeah.
I saw them all. Didn't
It's
there's
a long
a lot of
stream.
Yeah, that, and also, just like rewatching it back, not remembering what I had originally seen. It's like, I see so many fights, it's hard to remember all of the intricacies of each of them. But I was saying it during the watch along. I'm like, I think that Zahabi was taking those first 2 rounds. I was like, man, he's putting on a decent performance here with some good striking. Wasn't really getting touched a hell of a lot. Ramos was, he's fast, or he was definitely fast then for sure. So I mean, it was he was doing some nice work, but not enough to be taking the rounds in my opinion. But man, that spinning elbow, bro, so perfect.
I want to make two points, I think.
Sure.
Because one is, I don't know if we saw it in this fight necessarily. I think later on the card they start talking about it more. We had to admire that there was a different rule set kind of deal back then. That
Well,
was
no. Well, this is when this event had the new rules, but it was just being implemented. So yeah,
oh,
that
okay, yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's a very good point to bring up. Yeah, the update to the rules had just been implemented, and replay had just been implemented at this time. So yeah, this is a kind of a changing of a lot of things for the sport at that point in history.
And then the second point I want to make is like they must have tallied strikes different, because 47 and 45 for this fight is kind of crazy. These dudes were like kind of slugging for a little bit. I thought like this was kind of fun. I know
Yeah,
I said it like exactly like that already, but like it was entertaining to start the card, especially to rewatch, to go back. Like, it didn't like suck to rewatch a fucking this fight.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, this whole card, it was a good one. I guess another thing to mention is that this was voted on by the fans as one of the best cards of all time. So
Shout out them, shout out
yeah,
us. Like,
yeah,
wow.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely a good choice, I would say. I mean, there's a couple now that, you can make some cases for being a little bit better, but that's just the sport progressing, really. There's a couple of really great cards over time, and this is certainly one of them. And yeah, this fight, starting it off, definitely good. As far as the strike totals go, though, I mean, is it different, or is it just that they have some criteria for significant strikes and total strikes that we just don't know about? You know what I mean? What up,
Yeah,
Jack?
yeah. That's what I was gonna say, is because now I believe it's like everything that's not a jab, or if a jab doesn't equal a significant strike now, or something like that. But I don't know. So 47 and 45 sounds weird, because they were, like I said, they were getting after it.
I want to get to the bottom of this. This is something that I need to figure out how I can get some more information on. I got to talk to somebody like over at the Rules Commission at the ABC or something to find out how these numbers are arrived at. Because it's like I feel like every week we're talking about this, how the strike numbers don't seem like what they actually were. Somebody seems like they got more than the other guy did. Total strikes versus significant strikes. I mean, it just yeah, very odd. I want to do a little bit of digging on that. So maybe that's something that I'll get into in the future. But good fight, and yeah, and that ending sequence. I mean, what a beautifully placed spinning elbow. Good lord,
Yeah,
tight
right on
range,
the jaw. Killed
dude,
him, dude. He was
crumbled.
lifeless.
Yeah, he was out. I mean, this is one of a couple of fights where the losing competitor did not stay for the ring announcement, so that shows you just what the level of damage was there. It was a little while before Zahabi got back to his feet, so good win for Ramos.
Another thing that was interesting to note is I didn't expect to have the same exact commentary crew that I know. Like, I thought, like, going back in time, I was like, oh, a little spice up, but no, just DC, Rogan, and whoever else. Like,
You stay with what you know if it's working, right? I mean, that it's nothing that I would complain about, except when what we are always talking about during the watch alongs, when Rogan or DC blasts off with some craziness, at any little action. Oh, he's hurt. It's like, all right, come on,
yeah,
dude. Like, chill out, bro. He's not hurt that bad. And actually,
yeah,
we'll talk about that on the Contender series a little bit here, and when we get to it, because DC was on there as well and did the same thing on there too. I'm like, bro, come on, dude. Like, chill. I know you're trying to hype the fights up. I know you're trying to make it entertaining for the people watching, but not everything is like a fight ending sequence. And when you do that, it's almost like crying wolf, and then you're not really giving the proper emphasis when it's warranted. So
yeah,
that's why it bugs me. But yeah, no, I thought the it was nice to hear the older versions of these people, all these younger faces. Even Buff looked younger. I mean,
yeah,
like,
true.
he's kind of an ageless looking guy to an extent. I mean,
Hey,
he,
still
yeah.
dapper though.
Always, bro. Different suit for every occasion, every one fly. But yeah, so we saw a lot of guys that we see currently 7 years ago, guys and gals. I mean, a couple of women on here too, two of them, and yeah, it's just like I said, it's a time capsule. So good win for Ramos. That elbow was extremely nicely placed. Great way to start this card off. Good fight.
Yep.
All right. So now going from a good fight to a little bit of a strange one. This is Alexei Oleinik versus Curtis Blades. Yeah, this was It was an okay fight up until the ending sequence, and then there was a whole lot of weirdness going on with it. What'd you think?
Um, First, I want to note because it is crazy that this Olenek dude, his record at the end of his career, maybe he still goes, is 60-17.
Wild. Wild.
And at the time, he had like 22 submissions, which was crazy something to see. And this was a fun fight up until it was goofy because Curtis Blades is one, not very bright. At the time, he was, I think it was 13-1, I think.
Sounds about right.
And 7 years ago, and wow, he's just a goofball. He kicks him in the ear, soccer ball kick to the ear. Then they bring the doctor in, and Olenek says, I can't continue. I don't know how the soccer kick affected it because it was his ear, but he was getting beat up like really, really bad.
Yeah. It was. I think that's why it was so strange in general. So yeah, the sequence goes exactly that way. You know, Olenek was on basically his knees and his arms were kind of down too. He was sort of in like a, not like a full on plank, but like a kneed plank, so to speak. Like he was kind of hunched over down and with his knees down, and then Blades goes to soccer kick him in the head. That was the thing that was funny to me. I'm listening to the commentary and Rogan's like, oh, well, that's legal if it was going to the body. And I'm like, yeah, Joe, it would be illegal if it was going to the body, but it fucking wasn't. There was no clearer indicated target than where Blades was going, and it was clearly to the head. So yeah, Blades goes for the head, does not actually connect with the head except for a flick of the ear, almost like one of those type of deals that you do to your little brother. You flick him in the ear, except it was with his toe. Toe hits it, and then they bring in the doctor, and Olenek decides that he's unable to continue. I'm glad this is another rare commission W, especially in New York State. This took place at Madison Square Garden in New York. This was a commission W for them to give the TKO to Curtis Blades because, in under other circumstances with other commissions, there very well could have been a situation where it could have been a no contest. I thought it was going to be a no contest at first because he did technically make contact with his head. It's a little bit of a tough distinction there. I don't know exactly what the rule set says about, like, does it have to be the bulk of the head, or you know what I mean, like how that is all like laid out in explicit terms. But it was good that the commission gave the TKO to Curtis Blades because there was no legitimate contact to the head with the foot, thankfully for him, because that would have been a disqualification easily. And Olenek was looking for a way out, it looked like. I mean, he had been pummeled pretty well through that first round. Second round he was getting a good amount as well. He was almost finished in the end of the first round as well. So he had been taking a lot of damage. He didn't want to fight anymore. If Curtis Blades had connected with the full of the face, that would have been a completely different story. And yeah, low fight IQ move on Curtis Blades' part. He got lucky. He got that TKO.
Yeah, honestly, it was goofy, but hats off to them. I mean, I don't know how I feel about the call because, like you said, he did kick him in the head like that. I mean, your ear is attached to your head, whatever you want to say.
It's a good point.
But shout out to them for like getting it, somewhat right, because I feel like that would have been a weird moment if it would have been like a DQ or like whatever. But Curtis, I want to make the point. Curtis Blades was so upset at the stoppage, or at least at the time the doctor stoppage, whatever. And my guy, you tried to kick him in the head, like
exactly.
How are you mad?
Yeah, no, I said the same thing. I'm like, Curtis, you can be as mad as you want. You started it, bro. I mean, like, the sequence was started by you. You could have easily gone, like, at that point, too, he was so hurt, Alexei Olenek. He could have gone in and probably gotten a submission, which would have been his first and only in the UFC, by the way, which we know now 7 years later. But, like, I mean, like, he probably could have wrestled him down and taken his back. I mean, his back was wide open for the taking. Why you chose to go into kick mode, I mean, bro, you got to be more aware of the rule set than that. I mean, that's 101 shit,
Yeah. No,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, Curtis can be as mad as he wants about the stop. He was mad he didn't get a chance to get the bonus, all that kind of stuff. That's all well and good, and he very well might have had he been able to put him out at the end of that first round. There's something to be said there, but at the same time, you got lucky that it wasn't a much worse situation for you. So be happy with how it ended, Curtis Blades.
100%.
And we know, of course, going down the line how things would end up turning out for him. So I guess you just gotta take it all in context.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Randy Brown versus Mickey Gall. Man, what I had said on the watch along about Randy Brown is that for some reason I always have this like perception of him that he's a newer fighter. Like, I don't know why that is. It's just always in my head. I'm just like, oh yeah, Randy Brown. He's only been around for a couple of years, and it's like, nah, he's been around for quite a while, obviously. So this was a nice early Randy Brown fight, and looked really nice against Mickey Gall, who was just coming off of the CM Punk fight, and then following fight with, I believe, Mike Jackson, who also beat CM Punk.
There's one other to note because the boys wanted to make a point. Yeah,
Sure.
like we said, Mickey Gall on a 4-fight win streak. He's 4-0, by the way.
Right.
So he came in and then his 4th win was Sage Northcutt, who they wanted me to put respect on because I don't know who this guy is.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean,
too.
well, that's an interesting point to make, I guess. Then, Sage is one of those cases that, I guess you haven't seen him yet, so you're not fully aware of the whole situation there. He was another guy that was touted very highly. Physical specimen, so to speak. I mean, like he definitely had the look that would have been appealing to promotions and promoters. He did not really fully live up to his potential, only because I think he was hot-shotted a little bit early as well. They wanted him to kind of shoot up and be like a young star in the organization. Didn't work out that way. Ended up going over to one championship. It's been a little spotty over there as well. But, I mean, I don't necessarily think that he's someone that deserves a like tremendous amount more respect than he's already getting. Obviously, if you don't know him, that it doesn't, it doesn't shake out. But based on what I know of his career, I mean, I think that he's respected as appropriate. But he's still young, and that was, I think, also part of the thing is that, he was young when he was being hot-shotted, even younger still, and he's still young now. So, I mean, there's still potential for him to come into his own over there and win and maybe come back to the UFC at some point. But nice win for Mickey Gall over him because he was a surging prospect at the time.
No, yeah, absolutely. Listen, this was a good fight. It was really making me think like, okay, Mickey Gall, this is at a time when anything could happen. Like he is 4-0, like he was the guy to beat, I guess, to say, and he got beat. So Randy Brown, shout out to you. Like you said, when I saw his name, I was like, don't I watch this dude like right now? Like this is 2017. Like what is happening? Like I felt kind of weird. Like he must be like super, super young here. And he must have been around for like a really, really long time or something. So
yeah,
shout out to him. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Absolutely.
And stop the hype train. So shout out him. And like you said, with the last one, it's like, I mean, we see how your career goes. So you're just still like a what prelim? I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's getting up there at this point. Where's Randy Brown at right now?
Randy Brown UFC, because that name is very, very common.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Randy Brown, mixed martial artist. Yeah, let's see. What's his record looking like at this point? I mean, he's pretty good.
Okay.
Man,
Oh, he just fought Zaleski dos Santos.
Yeah, 302. So not too long ago.
Salikov, like, oh my God, these last two, brother.
Yeah, I mean, so what? That's seven out of his last 8. I mean, that's pretty decent, and his only loss to Jack Della. That's aging well.
Gosh, yeah. I mean,
yeah. I mean, this is a pretty decent record overall.
When I think of MMA careers, like 7 years, like that's like a whole career.
Is he ranked now? I don't know if he's currently ranked. I guess not. Yeah, so there you go, though. I mean, he's sticking around. I would think that keep putting together some decent wins. There's probably something still for him, even though he is starting to get up there just a little bit. He's 34 now, so not anything to say that he can't still make a run for himself if he wants to. But interesting to see his early progression here, because a little bit of a candy cane in the earlier parts, but he came into a really nice couple of win streaks, and with Jack Della being his only loss, that's pretty goddamn good right now.
Well, that was Vicente Luque too, but
that was earlier than that.
Yeah,
but 7 out of his last 8. I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but yeah, nothing more on this. I mean, Mickey Gall, I guess I could understand. That was another thing breaking down what they were at the time, like not just looking at, in hindsight. I felt like this was a good, like you said, time capsule, man. I felt like I really was in 2017, just like watching the card at home, like, because I didn't know what was going on. I mean, OSP, Corey Anderson. I don't
Yeah,
fucking know
yeah,
these guys.
yeah. We'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
One last thing that I would like to mention about Mickey Gall, I touched on it there with the win over CM Punk. The whole CM Punk experiment was happening at this time. He was, of course, the guy that they put him up against, and he solidly defeated him. I think that Mickey Gall is a little bit of a victim of that situation. And I say that in the sense that because he got some hype around his name after being the guy to defeat CM Punk, whether or not it was deserved or not, because I mean, really, it's an unfortunate element of it that he ended up getting all of that praise because CM Punk was not a great mixed martial artist. So now your name is attached to a quote unquote big win, but it's not really a big win. You know what I mean? Like, I think he got a little bit more shine than he needed as early in his career as he was. And they ended up kind of trying to hype him a little bit. It's not like he got any like crazy fights that he shouldn't have been able to win. But I just think that the name being associated with that win almost worked in his detriment. And now we see, his last fight, he barely scraped by. I mean, he won a round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's not necessarily the guy that that shot up off of that big name, so to speak. And I think it worked a little bit to his disadvantage.
Yeah, and Henry in the Discord, our residential historian when it comes to UFC, he was making a point like they couldn't put CM Punk against like a dude who had like 20, matches or whatever. They had to have somebody who was like fucking 3-0, 2-4, or not 2-4, but or something like that to make it look like, oh, CM Punk's going against somebody that's actually decent,
For
not
sure.
anybody
Yeah,
that's actually going to beat him square off, and we know it kind of
right. And it was absolutely appropriate at the time. I mean, like that fight was fine, like all things considered, as far as that part goes. It's just unfortunate that after he like got the win, it was now attached to him. It becomes part of the story, it becomes part of the storyline. And, he wasn't able to ride out the rest of what, could have been a nice amount of momentum. If he had started racking up win after win, then that would have been like a really nice hype train that could have made sense. It's like, oh, this is the guy that beat CM Punk and he's kicking ass against everybody else they put him up against. That could have really hot-shotted him heavily. Imagine if Bo Nickel had been the guy to beat CM Punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it sucks that he beats, Sage Northcutt. And then it's like, wow, he actually is 4-0 and he just beat a really good prospect. And it sucks that like it's all ended by Randy Brown, man.
Randy Brown, the wrench in the equation, but good win for him. I mean, it was a decent performance overall. Able to really cut him off at the pass for most of the time. I mean, he was leading the dance pretty well and getting his shots in where he could and where he needed to. So really not too much bad to say about him. It was a good, solid win. Mickey Gall goes on the backslide from there. Or checkered, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
All right. So OSP, Oven St. Preux versus Corey Anderson. We referenced this fight just a minute ago. This was a okay fight, I would say. I mean, not great.
I want to make a point. And if you go back in the watch along on my channel, youtube.com/@cpsmalls, and you witness me question, what is OSP good at? Like, what is he great at? Like, what is his deal? And I'm going to sit here and tell you that he is a phenomenal kickboxer. He can set up some really good traps and will kick you in the head to a point where he will walk away and you'll catch him on camera saying, my shin hurts. Like, if you get kicked if you're the one kicking a skull and you're walking away limping, like, I mean, I know the other dude's unconscious, but OSP, good fucking performance.
Yeah,
brother.
no, yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah, and let me backtrack on that because I was confusing this with the Walt Harris fight actually. So yeah, no, this was the head kick knockout. Yes, solid. My bad. Let me take the mea culpa on that one. Yeah, this was a very, very nicely placed kick. Didn't even look like he was putting a crazy amount of power on the kick either, man. I mean, like, and funny thing about that, shout out to John Dong. What up, buddy? How you doing? the funny thing about that is, so Corey Anderson is sort of like notorious in the UFC for being a guy that basically talked his way out of his contract. He was constantly bitching, moaning, and complaining about how he wasn't being paid enough. You know, I'm worth more than this, and that, blah, blah, blah. Then, I mean, like, this happens, and, you know, it's like, bro, I mean, maybe you're getting paid exactly what you're worth. He ends up going over to Bellator, fought for the title over there, ended up having a no contest due to some, you know, wackiness or whatever, and then ended up actually legitimately losing the title fight in Bellator at the time too. So I think Corey Anderson kind of wrote his own story, and it wasn't exactly the one he had in his mind.
Yeah, no, this one I thought was a fun matchup. I think the Discord was talking more about like Corey Anderson and more. I really wasn't paying too much attention. I was kind of trying to break down what was happening in the fight because for the most part, you know, Corey Anderson was doing pretty good. That's why I was questioning, like, you know, how did OSP like build from this? Like, did he become blah 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 blah? Like, because he fought John Jones, so like in my opinion, I'm like, he's got to be something. He's got to be at least somewhat decent. That this is somebody that John Jones would ever associate with, kind of deal. I was they told me that OSP was like just a warm up fight for John Jones on his way back. True or not, I don't know, but this was a good knockout, man. It was really fun to see. Obviously, hit him with that Leon Edwards combo. You know, it's
true.
Leon perfected it. Obviously, that's the only one we know, but clearly people knew about it way long ago to get the hands to drop and kick high.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right though. I mean, Anderson was doing decently in this fight up until then. I mean, the numbers here, you know, numbers aside, however, you know, wonky they may be, the numbers are pretty well telling the story here. I mean, the strikes are higher, and the takedowns were there for him too. So he was doing some decent work leading up until that sequence. But man, once that sequence was in place, it was just a really perfectly placed one. And again, somewhat effortless, you know, I mean, like it didn't look like he loaded up crazy on it. He didn't swing heavily through it. It was just nicely placed right on the button, and out he went. So yeah, really nice for OSP. I would agree with the Discord that the John Jones fight was a little bit of a toss to the, you know, to the Wolves kind of situation for him. You know, a sacrificial lamb to the John Jones altar to get him back in, you know, the standing that they wanted him in. But regardless, I mean, you know, he had his opportunity to win it like anybody else.
What's your opinion on the matchup? Was it a fun fight? Like, I was sitting here questioning. I was like, why don't I ever see any highlights from an OSP and John Jones fight?
You know, if I recall that one wasn't that great. I think that it was kind of pointy, and it was mostly just Jones getting shots off. But let me see. Bring that up for you. We can do a little quick research on that.
God,
yeah, it went to decision. Yeah,
okay.
So that was the fight I was recalling. Yeah, I mean, you know, it was pretty much typical John Jones out at distance, got his shots. You know, I mean, not anything overly to talk about with it. I mean, I'd recommend going back to watch it. It's available out there, but you know, it not necessarily one that's like in the annals of history of the, you know, the great John Jones fights. Certainly not one that's you know, anywhere near like a Thiago Santos versus John Jones where there's like any kind of confusion about who won, you know?
Yeah, I gotcha.
So, but yeah, that you know, that's about it on that. I mean, this fight, you know, definitely was a nice win for him, and I guess put him closer into a conversation that made sense that he was facing John Jones. So it's not like it was complete, you know, out of left field kind of matchup or anything like that. But still, it you know, it wasn't what it probably should have been for John Jones on his return from one of his various, you know, expulsions from the organization, one of his strippings, and, you know, or any number of things that happened outside of the cage. But this fight, decent for him, and a really nice finish for him as well.
Oh, this next one. It took me a minute to remember why this one was so frustrating, but then I'm like trying to think back, and I'm like, oh, okay. So Walt Harris versus Mark Godbeer.
Yeah.
Wow, this fight was like, it was quick, so that was cool. But like, Walt Harris is a fucking idiot, bro. Like, what the fuck? So he punches him after the ref. Well, the ref goes stop, and then Walt Harris punches him after, knocks him down, you know, hurts him, and then you see him later on saying to the ref, like, I would have stopped if you would have like pushed me away, like touched me or whatever. Like, brother, he's yelling stop. You don't get to get your free shots in because you suck. I don't know. That's
Yeah, this was a terrible, terrible look for Walt Harris, this fight against Mark Godbeer, who, I mean, he's the guy that is essentially like a bare knuckle fighter who, who was just in the UFC for a while. I mean, actually, I believe he ended up going back to bare knuckle afterwards. So I think he was fighting in like a Polish bare knuckle league somewhat recently, even. So I mean, the dude is still out
nice.
there. Yeah, dude is still out there throwing fists. So I mean, good for him for that. But good lord, what a low fight IQ move from Walt Harris, a guy who I constantly want to root for, but I mean, Walt, you make it so goddamn hard, and this is a prime example of it. So just as a backtrack, and I don't want to keep bringing this up every time that Walt Harris comes into the equation, but I do think that it's a little bit necessary for context. Walt Harris is his family is victim to an extremely tragic event. His goddaughter, or I mean not his goddaughter, his stepdaughter rather, was tragically murdered, and that is a very, very horrible thing that his family had to endure. And so I always want to root for Walt Harris. However, Walt Harris just recently basically had his MMA career pretty much ended effectively. I mean, he popped for steroids. I guess he was fighting in Bellator. I'm pretty sure that that's where it was. Wherever he was fighting, doesn't matter. He popped and got like a 4-year suspension or something like that already at 39 or 40 years old. So I mean, it effectively ended his career. So it's like you see that, the stuff that his family has gone through. It's like, Walt, could you just do the right thing? Just do the right thing. And then it's like all of that, you take that into context, going back to watch this fight and seeing what happened here. It's like, bro, you got to be in control of yourself in the cage. I mean, like, it was so late. The shot that landed late was so late. I mean,
Yeah.
like, there's no, dude, I might have stopped if you had done, but no, fuck all that shit, dude. You can say whatever the hell you want to say about it. You were wrong. And Godbeer, I mean, probably didn't need to take it that way. I mean, he probably could have kept going if he really, really, really wanted to. But I mean, I'm not. It's not my place to say whether or not he did take an illegal strike. That was pretty hard after he was, defenses were down. So I mean, you can kind of call it however you see it. But either way, it played out exactly as it should have played out because Walt Harris was to blame.
Rick Allen, what's up, man?
What up, brother?
Appreciate
How
you.
you doing?
And yeah, this one was a goofball move, super, like you said, super low IQ. And yeah, this one was a weird, fun card. And I guess these are part of the moments that I guess add to the experience. It's not really fun, but like it does add a level to it. It's like, it's not just like a boring decision. It's something interesting's happening, I guess. So
these are the kind of fights that Yama was birthed from. You know what I mean? Like this type of shit is exactly what made me start doing the show. So, yeah, I mean, so as I had said when we were talking about the OSP fight, and I had confused it, not the greatest fight of all time, but I mean, up until that point, Walt Harris was doing pretty nice work. I mean, it got Godbeer to the point where he wanted to quit. So, nothing to sneeze at in that respect. He was laying some decent hands on him, but I mean, you really just got to be in better control of your weapons, my man. It's just it's fighting 101. That referee steps in, you have to stop. And it wasn't like it would be way more of a pass if he had been in motion at the time. You know what I mean? Like if it had been like one of those situations where the ref had stepped in a little bit later and he was already throwing a punch. But bro, he said stop like 3 times before that punch landed. It was so blatant. So
he said stop, stop, stop. And then he realized he's not stopping. Then I gotta go move him and say stop. Like,
yeah, exactly. The referee should never have to physically get in there. I mean, it's sometimes they do, and it's not wrong that they do, but they should be able to, put that hand out and stop. It's a dead stop. If they say stop, you stop.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, unfortunate look for Walt Harris on that one. On top of an unfortunate set of life circumstances that would follow in his, in his trajectory. So Walt Harris is one of those sad stories in MMA to me that just really is kind of heartbreaking in a lot of ways. Harris got reamed by Overeem. Yeah, well, I mean that's what ended his career. I mean that's certainly part of it. Plenty of things ended his career, as
Yeah.
we just mentioned. All right, moving on to a one that was a little bit more fun. Here's James Vick versus Joe the Irishman Duffy. What'd you think?
I want to say, first, put some respect on James Vick's name, bro.
Hell yeah.
He was actually out here. And at the end of the fight, he even said it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was like, I got 8 wins in the organization and nobody ranked will fight me. I've been calling them all out. Justin Gaethje, yada, 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 yada. And unfortunately, we see what happened. But like James Vick really was one of them dudes. Like he was kind of an all game fighter. Like, but he really had aspirations to go higher. I feel bad that that's not what happened. Because at this point, bro, he was what is this like? Fucking 10-1, something in 1 at the time.
Yeah, it
Shout
sounds
out to
about
him.
right. I mean, yeah, he was out there really leading this fight. The pace was all him. I mean, Duffy seemed like he wasn't able to really like get his bearings. I think that this is another good example, an earlier example. We're talking 7 years ago now, but an earlier example of a guy who, if you come out with a certain level of intensity and agility to your performance, you throw the other fighter off their game. These guys, like, there are some times where these fighters just think that they're going to be able to take 30 seconds to a minute of round one to get their bearings and figure out what's going on in the fight. You don't always get that luxury. Joe Duffy, I think, is a victim of that to an extent. I think that Vic was moving so well from the start of this fight, and just he was really keeping a pace that Duffy could not, and that ended up being the ultimate downfall here. So yeah, I mean, it was a great win for James Vick. You could tell that he was a hungry guy back then for sure. Ended up who was the call out? I forget who he ended up calling out. He called
Justin
out.
Gaethje.
Yes, he called out Gaethje, got that fight, and then we saw what happened there.
There was some other names he said too that he's been calling out, but Justin Gaethje was on the list of them, and then that's the one he eventually ended up getting. And yeah, no, that's exactly what Rick. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, James Vick, because I try not to spoil the endings. Like obviously I caught glimpses, but for this one I was like, oh, James Vick, okay, he's getting knocked out clearly, and then I'm watching and I'm like, yo, this guy's actually not like horrible. Like he is kind of a game,
Yeah, well, so that's all fair toward in the later years. Again, we saw the progression thereafter, but he was also fighting this Joe Duffy fellow here, who not exactly a super high level mixed martial artist. Shiloh Primetime, have you went over DWCS yet? No, not yet, sir. We are going over 217, and then we will be doing Contender Series right after that. So stick around with us. But yeah, so a good performance for James Vick and a knockout when he's often the one on the other side of that. But you saw what everybody was seeing about him at the time. Again, this is why Alan's asking about why we're going over these old cards here. I think it's important for the history of the sport. We see where people end up after the fact, one way or another, good or bad. So.
And actually, Rick, I didn't even see your point. This wasn't even random. This was the UFC. They chose to give this to you. Sorry you missed out, brother. It was a good time. And I hope they do this more. I think it would actually be even more interesting if they gave us a chance to watch the worst ranked card of all time. I think that would be super fun, especially if it's god awful. But just another fun idea, in my opinion.
For sure, yeah. And of numbered cards, I'd be interested to see what that would end up being, because there have been a couple of snoozers out there. So, make that happen, everybody. Go tweet at the UFC.
All right, this is a good one.
Yeah, moving on. Johnny Hendricks versus Paulo Costa. This is the fight that I remember the most from my original watching of this card, because I said at the time, this is going to be Johnny Hendricks' swan song, basically. I was like, there is no way in hell that he is going to be able to beat Paulo Costa, who at the time was pretty well surging. I mean, he had racked up a couple of wins already. I think either 2 or 3. Then Hendricks was right on the end of his career, as it would end up being his last fight. So this one played out exactly as I expected it to play out. This was the fight that I recall at the time thinking, man, I got to start getting into betting because I was like, man, I would throw my entire house on Paulo Costa right now, and that would have paid off pretty heavily. We know how things might turn out nowadays, but at the time, it was correct. So yeah, this was a really nice showing for Costa against Hendricks, who certainly looked all of the years that he had been fighting. I mean, he looked his age for sure.
Yeah, they were telling me in the Discord that at one time, Johnny Hendricks was something to behold. And what I was looking at was a truck driver. Like it was a professional fighter. And when I saw Paulo Costa walking forward, throwing punches that didn't look like he was imagining a fucking bag in front of him, it was so beautiful to see. And I was like, wow, I can see the vision, man. I see what I want to see out of Paulo right here. Like, this is crazy. This is 7 years ago. Like, oh my fucking God, man. So it was fun to see. He got a finish. Like, wow, guys. And then, I mean, was he still going by the eraser at the time? I don't know, but he was certainly doing some work against this very beer-bellied looking guy.
Yeah, I mean, it really, you talk about changing of the guard fights over here. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, a guy who, by many accounts, was on the wrong side of the worst robbery of all time. That's certainly my opinion. Him versus GSP, the worst robbery of all time in this sport. So, I mean, there was a time when Johnny Hendricks had world ender potential. Johnny Hendricks also had a lot of problems with weight cutting. That's why he ended up at middleweight. A lot of unfortunate factors in his time in the organization led him to where he ended up. But at this point, it was just too far gone. So changing the guard is exactly what this was. I mean, one guy very much at the end, and one guy who theoretically should have been at the beginning of an illustrious career, and we know how that worked out. But yeah, this was a vintage Paulo performance. I mean, this was what, if he had been able to keep doing, would have been like, oh, you saw this all the way back then. You saw where he started from and where he would end up. So I mean, this is it's unfortunate seeing Paulo now 7 years later and all of the ups and downs and the missed fights and the missed weight and everything that goes into him. A guy who, by some accounts, was saved by his tweeting. It's an odd lineage. We talk about the storylines. This was an odd, Paulo Costa is a continuing odd storyline in general. But at this point in time, UFC 217, he was the next up.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely a fun one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. That Johnny Hendricks versus GSP was not the worst robbery. All right, my dude. Patty versus Jared was much worse. Yeah, no. All right, I'm not even entertaining that. All right, moving on to Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson versus Jorge Masvidal. Short hair Jorge.
Yeah, this one was a snooze fest. Unfortunately, I hate to say that because I love a good Wonder Boy showing, but us in the Discord, we were just bored with this one. They told me going into it, maybe I had the vibe off and maybe it ruined the experience for me. And yeah, they kind of maybe talked me out of a good experience on this. That's all I'll say, because it was not too, it kicked to the ground a few times. That was interesting, but that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, again, talking about in historical context, it was certainly the Wonder Boy of the era. I mean, the super wide karate stance, a lot of distance strikes that landed. I mean, it was, Masvidal not looking great, but doing enough to stay in the fight. Yeah, this was not like, like the greatest of all time for either of these guys, but certainly, a fine fight to round it out. And when Wonder Boy at the time was still, in the conversation, this was another nice win for him to, keep putting him closer into better ranking. So, I mean, this, it was a fine win for Wonder Boy. Not overly exciting one way or another, but yeah, I mean, this is all, of course, before Jorge would become the Jorge that we know now.
Yeah, for sure. And it just proves my point. But, well, this is unfortunately a showing for me on Jorge's. Like, I'm not one of those people that believes like Jorge was like crazy skill level for the sport or whatever. Like, to think that he was at a time, a top a top player in this game. I just don't see it when I watch his performances. On this one, I'm like, wow, you're just getting smoked by Wonder Boy. I love Wonder Boy and he's great, but like as somebody who's supposed to be, a star at the time, like he got kind of mopped in a boring matchup.
Yeah, well, I mean, once you start getting a couple of years down the line when it comes to Jorge Masvidal, about late 2018, early 2019 was really when a lot of things just slipped into place correctly for him to become the star that he would end up becoming. It's not because of fights like this. For a long time, and this fight included, people really did think of him as a journeyman. I mean, that there wasn't really much more potential for him after that. It was really around the time of the three-piece in the soda for Leon Edwards that things started to change for him. And then it was the BMF fight and the flying knee. I mean, that was again. It was like a lot of things just kind of clicked for him that wasn't representative of his entire career. So he's an interesting case in MMA in general for that reason. He had this meteoric rise off of very select specific things, and so he's just kind of fascinating. But this fight is a little bit more in line with the Jorge that is better representative of his career, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's good that people have like drastic hair changes and like, look changes because then you can just separate them. Like this is just a different Jorge, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the era can be defined by the look.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to one of the 3 title fights on this card. This is one that is a heartbreaker for many people, myself included. This is Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas. That is their first fight. And yeah, this is a tough one. As a person who was a big fan of Joanna at the time, I would say that she at the time was my favorite female mixed martial artist. This one did hurt a little bit, especially the way that she went out too as a champion.
Yeah, I want to say that my first experience watching Joanna live, like in the moment, not knowing the outcome, I actually didn't pay attention to how this one ended. And man, I'm upset because like the way that Joanna carried herself as a champion, and she was real confident, real cocky. It sucks that she went out like that against Rose too. Oh my gosh, a baby check hook was crazy to just like fall like.
And then tapping to strikes.
Yeah, that was really, really, really bad because like, and I said this at the beginning of the at like the streamer or the fight, I guess. When you look at like the women's goats, right? I think of like women that are like crazy, like Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, fucking, Ronda Rousey to an extent. And like Joanna is just such a innocent looking fucking woman. The fact that she fights the way she does is so crazy. So shout out to her because she really is a goat. Like, she did her thing.
And she was on such a streak at the time too. That was another thing that was so crazy about it. I mean, like going into it, as I had said, I hadn't been betting at the time, but the Costa fight was one I was like, man, I should put a lot of money down on that because I was really confident about that. I probably would have been putting a heavy amount on Joanna as well and would have lost everything that I made on the Paulo fight because, I mean, she was just so dominant in her time. I mean, she was such a dominant champion. I don't think she gets enough credit, like, in the pantheon of the sport for what she accomplished, at women's strawweight. She, at the time, was like on I think a 7 or an 8 fight win streak, something like that. So, I mean, plus the belt, it really was an unfortunate way to go out. And again, just as a champion tapping the strikes, that was just hard to see. She did a little bit better in their next fight, but still didn't win that one either. So that was, already the beginning of the backslide. And then of course, one of the greatest women's fights of all time, her versus Zhang Weili. Another fight that she did not win. Sad to say. So, I mean, this was the beginning of the end for sure. It definitely hurt because she was at the time like the one to watch, and I really enjoyed watching her fight when she was on top.
It sucks to watch these and you see like, if we go back and ever do more rewatch along to older cards to see the knock out the champs that are just like mediocre at best in the grand scheme of things. Lord have mercy, man. I hate to see that Rose is the one that just like, it's not even like she just like beat her and it's like, oh, split decision, Rose won. No, she fucking knocked her out like on the feet. Like women's fucking straw weight knockout in the champion. Like, all right, whatever. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then, Rose would go on to have the career that she ended up having, a little bit of an odd one here and there, wins, losses, belt holding, belt not holding, I mean, it's Rose is a complicated individual in general, so it's a hard kind of story to really nail down all the details of for her, and she's still continuing on. So I mean, it was kind of the beginning of a odd path, but still a really nice way for her to get the belt, and definitive way as well. So, can't take that one away from her at all. Shout out to
100%.
TJF in the chat, by the way. All right, so that was one. And now the second title fight of the three on this card was Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw. Man, this was a heavy performance for the Juice Box. What'd you think?
So I didn't know that this was happening until days before. But I was doing rewatch alongs for random seasons of Tough, and Tough 25 was the one I was watching, which is Dillashaw and Garbrandt. So I got to watch the finale. Well, like the finale technically of the championship fight for it. And wow, I do see TJ's, like I do see how he was really fucking good. Unfortunately, Cody Garbrandt, I see the same fucking dude that I see now. Not like obviously in any capacity, but like, bro, he has not adapted any part of his game to like elevate. He's just still a boxer. He's just he has never thrown a kick in his life, I don't think. But TJ is really, really good, and the head kick, wow. It was crazy because Cody almost finished it in the first round.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, he dropped him.
God, man, that would have been a roller coaster to watch. Like, imagine, betting at the time, like, wow, just
yeah, for sure.
can't believe.
Yeah, so I agree with you on Garbrandt. I think, yeah, I know. I thought that was funny. I agree with you on Cody Garbrandt. I think that the issue that I always see with Cody is that I think that he's starting to understand now that his chin is weak, but at the time, he's overconfident in his ability to evade. That I think is one of his biggest flaws, because when he does his little showboaty things, it's always it's one of those. He's always, I got out of the way of the shot, except when you don't. And that's the problem. So, I mean, he's very fast and he's very accurate with his striking when he's on. Like that, like you said, he dropped him. I mean, he was landing some decent shots. It was a pretty competitive fight up until that point. But, I mean, that chin just is his biggest Achilles heel, and it just always fails him. And that was for Dillashaw, who was really at his highest. I mean, he was not going to be any higher than that. Going forward, we know what happened. Going forward, we know how it would turn out for Dillashaw in a lot of different ways. But this was really the best of him, and this is kind of when you were starting to see the cracks really start to form for Garbrandt.
Yeah, it sucks to see, man, because and it was weird because when you look at these dudes' records at the time, it was like 11-0 and like fucking 13-1 or something like that. And it was weird. It's just weird to see champions with such weird records. But I mean, you look at it now, it's like Ilya is like what, 12-0, like something like that,
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And then one thing, so Shiloh Primetime in the chat, shout out. You saying cry about the juice a little more. Let me just say one thing about that, just because I think it's important to note in Dillashaw's, in his story. We talk constantly on this podcast about the storylines of fighters' careers. The juicing with Dillashaw, we were talking about this on the watch along too. Why it's different for Dillashaw than say a John Jones or Anderson Silva is because of how blatant it was for Dillashaw. I mean, he got popped for EPO. I mean, like that is as blatant as it gets, and for it to be done in the way that it was, like there were no two ways about it. There was no tainted supplements. There was no dick pills, at the gas station type of deal. I mean, like, dude, you got fucking busted by USADA at the time, who a lot of people would say is one of the organizations that is easy to get around. At least that's the conventional wisdom from some people. So Garbrandt fucked himself with that, is I think the biggest point.
Dillashaw.
Sorry, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, Dillashaw. Dillashaw screwed himself with that. I mean, it's to me like an unfortunate aspect of it, and such a blatant one in his career, and would end up being such a trajectory alterer that I think that it has to be. You have to consider it, because the other point of it, the other thing that you have to keep in mind is that you now have to call into question all of his performances. At least for me, that's like, I kind of was making a joke about it, but was he juiced here? Was he juiced in any of his performances before that? When did he start? When did he stop? I mean, these are the questions that now come into play when you know for a fact that he was doing it, that there was no two ways about it, no tainted supplement, no any kind of backdoor that you can get out of with that. So
Yeah.
I just think it's important to note for him, and also that it's important to note because he screwed himself so badly when he was a champion and could have continued to be a high-level mixed martial artist.
Yeah, what do they say? It's not the first time you did it. It's just the first time that you got caught. So that's just how it goes, man. Shout out to TJ though. He did get a good win. This was goddamn, this was a good card. And having these all three finishes and 3 championship fights, it's like what can you ask for in life? I mean, that's it. Right
Absolutely. There. At Madison Square Garden, no less. Very, very cool. But let's get to the main event, the final of the 3 title fights.
Let me make this last point.
Yeah,
it was weird, in my opinion, back in the day, that this was like not in England or Canada. Like, why was this just an MSG for GSP and Michael Bisping? Like, I feel like
because GSP is the GOAT, bro.
I mean, okay.
That's why. But you are right though. It is a little strange that that they had 2 foreign national fighters, fighting at Madison Square Garden. But I think that does speak to the star power of GSP coming back after a layoff here. After the fight that we just talked about with Hendricks, going away for a little while. Very popular fighter in the sport, and another guy who'd been, really on the wave of the older school,
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody wanted to wear tight shorts like George, So
hey, I mean, who doesn't?
Exactly.
it's a look. But so Michael Bisping versus George St-Pierre, the main event of UFC 217. As I had mentioned, this was a comeback fight for St-Pierre, who took some time off from the sport after his, some time, right? 5 years. That's quite a layoff. To come back, move up a weight class to do this, and go up against a champion in Michael Bisping. Pretty crazy.
I want to say going up a weight class, very warranted, because as North in the Discord wanted to point out, this dude's gut was huge.
Well, let me say, he does have a little bit of an excuse though, because he was battling ulcerative colitis for a lot of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that I don't, whether or not you want to say that that's an excuse or not, it does bloat the gut a little bit. So he kind of has just a little bit of a stomach extension from the illness that he's been battling for quite a while in his career. Actually, I think he had to have like some part of his colon removed or part of his intestines. It was he had some major surgery from it. So cut the champ a little slack. All right, cut the goat a little slack.
Shout out North for hating. But yeah, so GSP, I want to make the point that when I've watched this fight before, not live, of course. And when I remember watching, I'm like, I remember thinking like, this is a good GSP. Like, this is decent. Like, this is fine. Like, whatever. I've never seen anything to compare to. Discord, they're telling me, be prepared. This is the slowest GSP has ever looked in his career. So I was like, oh, okay, well, he's looking pretty good, whatever. And then my last thought, if you put in an AI generator and say, make Dricus du Plessis striking look good, this is what you got. You have this guy right here. I swear to you. It was almost like everything was so on point. It was just like tackle or set up a fucking high kick. Like, it was crazy. Superman punch was crazy to see.
Yeah,
I can't believe I lived through it. You never would have thought I would have been happy to see GSP do a Superman punch, but I was. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, one thing also to note is that on commentary, they were glazing the ever-loving fuck out of Michael Bisping's cardio. They were just saying that, oh, George has to be careful with this because Bisping can go all day. He's not going to be tired from any of this stuff. Well, I mean, he sets up what he needs to do here over and over again. I mean, like you said, it might have been a slower version of GSP, although GSP kind of was a little bit slow in general. He wasn't always like a super explosive fighter. I mean, like he had his moments of it, but like on the whole, I mean, he was kind of more methodical in his approaches most of the time. And I would say that this kind of fell in line with that. I mean, he came back, had the fight, that kind of a fight where it was like you were saying, I mean, like, oh, the striking was not necessarily, super technical and beautifully set up and everything, but effective when it needed to be. Had Bisping cut, a couple of little openings showing on Bisping's face, and then when he got him down, it was just a over and done case. He got that neck, and it was such a nicely sunk in rear naked. Probably could have got stopped a little bit earlier, even. Bisping was out for a minute, but
yeah, I was gonna say Bisping went out on the shed. You saw him go for the tab, and he's like, I'm just going to sleep, So that was a good one. And GSP, he was bloodied too, man. He was beat up. This was a good one for the fans to see. Like this was a really good one, especially because at a point like GSP was getting tired. Like you could see that he was like kind of fading out. He wasn't doing as much, wasn't as active, but when he needed to, he got this one finished, and shout out him. It was kind of funny, I will say. It was kind of funny to go into it and be like, man, Michael Bisping's got this one. And and damn well that he does not. So
yeah, for sure. And actually, come to think of it, I think it was GSP who had the majority cuts as opposed to Bisping. I think Bisping might have gotten out of that a little bit less than I had made it out to be. So my apologies there. But yeah, I mean, it was a nice image at the end of that. GSP all cut up and, screaming at the camera, getting his win and coming back 2-division champion after all that time. I mean, it is a crazy part of the stories, the sports history and his story. I mean, GSP is a lot of things to a lot of different people as far as where you put him on the GOAT ranking and all that kind of stuff. Performance like that with the story attached to it, it's pretty, it's pretty impressive, and it makes for a good narrative, I would say.
Yeah, I think after rewatching the whole thing, the whole card, and knowing some of the outcomes and not knowing some of the outcomes, I think it is fun either way, because when you know who wins, it is fun in the fight to see like, ooh, the finish is coming up. Like, how does this turn? Like, how does this end up Michael Bisping getting choked out? Like, because they're on the feet 1 second and it could be going like one way and then boom, end of the fight. Like, that's what's just so beautiful about the sport, man. It really can just be over in a split second.
Yeah, and that's a good point in general. Like I'm often not too upset when I get the results spoiled for me if I don't get to catch an event live for that exact reason. It's like I'll still get to watch the story unfold in front of me. It's like, even if you know the conclusion, you can still get an entertainment value out of where it all takes place and how they get to it. So, I think that there's a lot of value in going back and rewatching these old cards, even knowing how they turn out. So, yeah. So overall impressions of the event, voted by the fans as one of the best of all time.
I want to say that the fans did me right, because I haven't been here long enough to be able to vote for something like that. That ain't on me. You guys had to lead me to the water on that one. 217. If we can do a top 5, hopefully for the next 4 times that we don't have cards, that they do the top 5 that most voted that they just had or whatever, that would be really cool. But if we never get to have them again, I mean, I might have to tweet at somebody like, yo, we got to have something, because that was a good watch a long time. Even if it wasn't live, just getting the boys together and enjoying some fights was fun, man. Damn.
Absolutely. And I like your idea of having them do the worst rated event of all time too. I think that would be an awesome idea. I would love to do that. I would love to watch that. So
especially having everybody there together, and we know it's going to be bad, man. Get the drinks together, enjoy the madness that's going to go.
Exactly. Tap in with the boys for sure. Yeah, good time. I enjoyed it as well. Nice to come back around to it after 7 whole years. It's crazy to think of how long I've been enjoying this sport, but yeah, this was a fun one. Glad to get another shot at watching it. So that is UFC 217. Let's move on now to week 3 of the Contender series, which took place on last Tuesday. So I am going to be completely honest with this one. We were having some problems on our stream at the time because for some reason Twitch has a hard-on for Yama. I have no idea why. Twitch, we love you. We do not want to be permanently suspended from your platform. We are not hacking your platform, I promise. Generally, it is me and Vitz King sitting on a couch. We have no ability to DDoS your servers. We don't know what the hell any of that shit is all about. But for whatever reason, Twitch decided to permaban us yet again. Thankfully, they have lifted the permaban, so we are back on Twitch. Thank God. But at the time, there was a little bit of extenuating circumstances happening, so I might not have caught every single detail of all of these fights, but I know the majority of everything, and I got a pretty decent handle on all of them. So we can. I just want to put that disclaimer out there if there's any specific details that I might have missed.
And we are gonna go over the next event, brother. Just after this.
Yeah, we will be. We will be. This show has a format, my guy.
First fight.
Yes. This is Duffy versus. Okay, so I think it was pronounced Puccinini, the way that they were saying it on the commentary. I want to go with that because Piccanini is very, very close to a racist term, and it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I've been slinging. I was slinging that around. I mean, at first I thought it was Piccanini, but then I heard the ch sound, so I was going with Piccinini.
Okay, there you go.
But I want to say first, this fight is a sham. The judges are idiots, absolute idiots for picking this dude to win because he sucks. And Dana, thank you for the format of this show. I'm so glad that you can just tell them that was not right. Like, you did not win the fight. You're not getting a contract. And the fact that he says this season, if you want to fight again and you want another opportunity, you will have to fight that same guy again. That is so great because Jack Duffy deserved a fucking contract. He was looking good at a plus 300 dog too. If I would have been there, it's the stories, man. The dude comes in here. He was an addict, things going on in his life that weren't good. And he was looking to make a change, and fighting was a way out for him. And this is what he needed. And this was going to change things for him. And the judges absolutely robbed him, and it's not even like they actually control fucking money at this point because Dana's not going to sign somebody who loses unless it's like a draw type of deal or like fucking whatever.
Well, it has to be like it has to be like an extremely good loss, which we will talk about one of those later on in this card. But I think that this was exactly the right way to handle the situation by Dana. I have a lot of opinions about Dana White and how he handles things. I think that when it comes to the Contender Series, 9 times out of 10, he does the right thing. So, I think that you're exactly right. This was an unfortunate decision to go to Piccinini, however you pronounce it. This certainly shouldn't have gone the way that it went. As far as the judge's decision goes, I think it is exactly right that they get a rematch. They're going to get a rematch on the Contender Series. And how about it in the sense that this is going to now be on 4 weeks' time. So, because they said that they're going to do it in week 10 if both of them agree to it. So you want to show that you really want to be in the UFC, you come back and you fight again in 4 weeks and, get the goddamn job done.
Not okay. To bridge off what you just said, unless you are Torres Finney.
6 weeks. Sorry,
6 weeks. And so 6 weeks. You're talking about fighting here, coming back for a rematch in 6 weeks. How about fighting last week or 2 weeks ago, which would have been week 2, and then coming back week 8? Okay, so 6 same. Torres Finney, you get told by Dana White 2 times, go get 3 fights in a different place and come back here. The second time you get told that, why do you not listen to him? And why do you come back to the same season and try to get another contract after he's not giving it? And like, in my opinion, if he wins 3 times, you got to give him a contract. Whether you like it or not, he's beating the competition. But
fair. And I think that's a fair assessment of the situation. However, what Dana wants to see on this show. That's why it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Excitement is the name of the game. So, really, he needs to come back here and be exciting. And that's whether or not it's in another organization 3 times or here once, it needs to be exciting regardless. So, he can continue to rack up boring wins. He should go to the Ultimate Fighter.
I would hate to see him come out here and he's like, you know what? I got to do something crazy, man. I got to just throw it at the wall. And he comes on and gets knocked out or something. Like, just what Dana wants to see. Like, at this point, I feel like Dana is just wanting him to come out here and act like a goofball to lose so he can have his point made. I don't know.
I mean, it's every fight is a fraud check kind of situation for him as well. I mean, like, look, if he does get knocked out, then yeah, then that does prove the point. But if he does go and show out, then all of this is negated. It's easy to the method is hard, the outcome is easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how you get there is your own, your own skill set and your own choice. But like, if you are able to get an exciting win, you will get the outcome that you want. It's pretty simple. So we'll see what ends happening with him.
Actually, to bridge on that, there's a fight later on in this card where a person who did not get the contract the first time, they did come back and put on that spectacular performance and got the contract. So it is the name of the game.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next fight on this Dana White's Contender Series. This is Wellmaker versus Bramhold. Bromold, I believe is how it was pronounced. And yeah, Wellmaker, man, talk about a deserved contract in this guy. Good Lord, was he on point.
Yeah, this guy, if you want my honest opinion, this is probably the next Josh Van right here. Someone who can pick up easy takedown defense, but is a killer on the feet and can probably knock some people out. So, well, not probably. I mean, whatever, going forward. Right. But this Bromold dude, I feel like I did see him before. I'm trying to think who he lost to, because I've seen, maybe I haven't seen him, but he just looks so familiar, in the fight, and then he got knocked out and put to sleep. So really wasn't too much for it. I hated what DC, I don't know if you caught this, DC kept saying, "Oh my God, he switched stances mid punch." Like, and I was thinking, like, he just threw a normal, like, overhand right, like, maybe he crossed his feet at the end, but like, damn, DC, like, what the fuck do you give a fuck? Like, he said it like 7 times. Like, you look at this, guys, right here. Look at his feet. They switch. Like, okay, my guy. Fuck.
Yeah, going back to DC, kind of hyping things just for the sake of hyping them, I think. Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, it was a really nice knockout, and well deserved contract after that. So. I think that there's potential for what you're saying to be true. It all depends on the competition that they're facing inside of the organization. That's why this is kind of its own beast, so to speak, the Contender Series, just because you're getting two guys who have been high level in other places, theoretically, trying to get into the highest level. So you're getting one version of fighting in the Contender Series that you're not going to get in the actual promotion. You're going to get a whole different beast in the promotion. So, I mean, a knockout like that is a great way to enter, and we'll see what he can do. There's really not too much to say on the other side of it. I didn't really see too much from Bromold that stuck out to me as noteworthy. Also, the fight ended pretty quickly, so Wellmaker gets his contract, and we will see what he's capable of in the organization.
Yep.
All right, so now Tulio, on the other hand, this is Tulio versus Duclos, or Duclos, I guess, a Frenchman. Tulio, this guy is one that I think is a guy to watch out for. All of what I just said is true still, but like based on the performance that he put on here, I could see him being a really big threat in the organization just off rip. He looked so technically proficient.
I'm getting vibes of like a Kopylov kind of deal.
That's. I think he's looked a little better than that personally.
Really?
Stronger too. Oh yeah,
Dude,
yeah, absolutely.
Built like a tank. I'll give you that one. But I don't want to show up, and he might be a guy who can give you a good matchup. But I don't know if I see too much. Like, he's a guy who didn't get a contract on the Contender Series the first time. Like, take that as you will. Maybe Duclos is not the greatest. Maybe he is. Marco came out here, did a fantastic finish, the first spinning back kick into finish in Contender Series history, they said.
Yep.
So shout out him for, doing it impressively. He knew what he had to do, and if you're going to do something, be the first, I guess.
I mean, I thought he was putting some decent power on his shots, but not loading up to the point of overloading. Now, granted, I mean, Duclos, is, like we say about France often, emerging market. I didn't think that Duclos was necessarily like showing amazing technicality himself. So he might have had a little bit of a blank canvas to work with, Tulio did. But either way, I mean, I just thought that the power was there, the technical striking was there, the mixing it up obviously was there if he got the spinning back kick to to finish the fight. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, lose or not on his previous time. I mean, that was his only loss, I guess. So I think that there's potential for him. I mean, as I just said, there's always going to be a little bit of a difference when you're actually in the organization. So it depends on who they pair him up with. But I could see him doing some decent stuff. I liked him. I liked his performance.
I'm excited. It should be fun. Like I said, Contender Series always brings some good people to the league.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, most definitely. And we know that they have the potential to go on to amazingly great things, as we have a former champion and a current champion, both off the Contender Series.
Hell yeah.
All right. Now, this fight, this is Grod versus Aswell Jr. This is like possibly one of the best Contender Series fights I've ever seen in my life, honestly. This is like the Contender Series BMF fight, honestly.
You really? Okay, listen. When I heard Dana White say that after the fight, I don't know what I was watching. I'm going to be honest with you. Because I did not feel that at all for this.
Really?
I watched round 1 and 2, and the third round I was like, yeah, I'm all right, man. I mean, I guess it's going on. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe something was happening in the chat, but I can tell you specifically after this fight, I really didn't even care who won. Like, I knew, I'm trying to think, because I feel like at the time, I thought this was a robbery, but like, I think the grad guy is who I was thinking was winning, but just not in a very great way. He was getting beat on for a little bit of it, but
he took some damage. He definitely did, but they both did. I mean, they were both really swinging up until the end. I mean, it was a good amount of back and forth. I think that it was pretty well 1-1 going into the third, and then it was the third that really swung it. I would recommend going back and rewatching it if you have the opportunity to, because I think it lives up to the hype that Dana was putting on it, the hype I'm putting on it, and during the decisions for the contracts, Dana did say that even though Grod is getting his contract and will be entering the organization, Aswell will be an alternate essentially. So if there's a time that someone drops out of a fight and there's a new fighter at featherweight needed, Aswell will get the call. So, good for him. Basically, a contract without a contract, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was a really great fight. I mean, they both were really laying it on there. I mean, I guess that the criticism that you could say is that it wasn't exactly like super, super high level technicality. One thing I thought about Grod was that he is very flat footed. He doesn't move all that nimbly. So he was taking a decent amount of shots, but it almost looked like it was by design. Like he's like one of those guys that'll like just, hands down walk forward and just like, take a couple to give a couple. So, I mean, it's a fun style to watch because he will take some and give some, but it wasn't overly technical. So I guess there is a little bit of criticism there, but putting it all on the line is what the name of the game is on the Contender Series, and I think that they both did a really good job of that. So
and to both of their credits, they did get bonus money. They got an extra $5,000 or something like that, or maybe it was both. They got win and show, and then shout out Austria, Bogdan Grod. Good job.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly. Shout out Austria, indeed, another emerging market that does not have a lot of representation in the organization. So cool. All right, and then finally on this Contender Series Week 3, we have Puliev versus Anderson. This, I think, was kind of one of the weaker fights from this round of Contender Series so far. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like super great. Puliev has some really nice distance striking. Give him that.
This is the Russian guy. All I can remember is Dana like talking like while he was like wrapping up, and he's like, he's not gonna be able to understand me anyways. Like, done talking about him. But I feel like I like this fight, and I know that's crazy to say that after I didn't like the last one, but I feel like I remember liking this Russian dude, thinking like, okay, he's all right. Like he's doing something. He was the underdog. I mean, that's another thing. We had a lot of dogs win on this card. So that's
always on the Contender Series. Always bet on the dogs, man. Like if you don't know who these guys are, if you're not well versed on these guys before they enter these fights, bet on the dog because this is the best time for them. Yeah, the one thing about Anderson that I noticed was that he was really, really clinch heavy,
Andre.
but did no, 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 Anderson, the
No.
guy who the dude he was
Oh,
fighting.
oh, 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 okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I noticed about him was that he was very clinch heavy, but didn't really do too much with the clinch. He got him up against the cage a couple of times, wasn't able to get him down. Wasn't even really trying for the next position, which on the Contender Series is almost a death sentence in and of itself. If you're not advancing the position, you're really just stalling, and that's not what that's not what the show is. So I didn't really think that he was really making himself look very good with a lot of the neutralization that he was doing. Pulyev was doing some decent distance striking, which was a little bit. It almost reflected worse on Anderson than great on Pulyev because he was at such a far range that Anderson probably should have been able to negate some of that. He does have long limbs, He's Pulyev is kind of a long, lankier dude, even though he's not super super tall. But he's taller, but not like comparatively. I mean, he didn't have like that much height on him, but he was just able to get these like distance strikes that I wasn't really expecting him to be able to land. I was like, man, that's kind of impressive that he was able to land those. Really ate up the legs very well. So decent performance. I thought that he wasn't bad, and he'll get his contract, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you go. That is week 3 of the Contender Series. Just as a note, both myself. Well, actually, I don't know if you're not doing watch alongs for these live, right?
Yeah, it'll be Thursday.
So there you go. You can watch myself and the Vitz King live here on the Yama channel, and then you can watch again with Chase on his channel. So we do live watch alongs for the Contender Series here, and Chase will do them after the fact. But yeah, so that's week 3, and we'll have week 4 coming up tomorrow. So more streams to come. To finish this off, let's take a quick look at next week. This is UFC Vegas 97. This is Burns versus Brady.
I want to say, bro,
yeah.
this is a good. I just looked at all the names. You need to go to ESPN, by the way, because they got new names.
Yeah, let me just go on.
Bro, this is a good card. Holy shit. This has got so many people I like. And we've been talking about them. And so first starting off, look at that.
Hey, Fletcher's finally getting his shot after the break on the Ultimate Fighter, and he's fighting Ziggy Mantis, also on the Ultimate Fighter. I like this fight. Both these guys were supposed to be fighting and couldn't, so this is finally going to happen. This is good. I'm glad that they're giving these guys the opportunity.
Yeah, no, this one will be really fun. I'm still going to take Nathan Fletcher by submission, man. I think he's going to get Ziggy down. And this one will be really, really fun because Ziggy, shout out Lithuania, man. I might have to get a flag for this dude because he is a dog. Holy shit, he's a dog.
He's a tough guy. That's what I'm going for, man. I mean, honestly, you have every right to think that Fletcher has the submission ability because I know that he is good on the ground. I think that Ziggy Mantis is he's tough, man. I mean, like
with a name like that, bro.
Hell yeah, dude. Ramaska. This dude is fucking come in here and beat you down with a balaclava on, I just based on what I saw in the Ultimate Fighter, I think that he has the potential to overwhelm Fletcher. That's my initial gut feeling. He is the underdog, so we'll see what happens there. I think that I'm gonna stick with Ramaska on this one. I think the toughness will overcome the technicality, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
To your point, if you think about it, Ziggy, the person that he faced, is very similar built to Nathan Fletcher. Nathan Fletcher is just a shorter kind of featherweight, while Ziggy is a taller featherweight. Nathan Fletcher only faced like a very short, stocky wrestler. That's not what Ziggy's like. Like that's a whole different, stylistic matchup. All Ziggy has to do is keep Nathan in front of him, though, and it's fair game for him. Like he's gonna tear him up on the feet. So it's interesting, for real.
Yeah, it's gonna. One of the things we were talking about that, when we were going over 217, the idea of starting quickly and keeping the pace. When you are the bigger fighter and you are, able to use your range a little bit better theoretically than your opponent, starting quicker is always going to be, not always, but generally going to be in your advantage. I think. I think if you get these guys who want to go super technical, if you catch them early and really are like leading the pace, it kind of can be a little bit overwhelming because they're trying to get a game plan off that they're not able to set up correctly while you're doing what you're doing. So I think that if Ramaska can come out here and be a little bit ferocious early in the fight while still not letting himself be too open, he's got some potential to take the fight.
This one will be fun. I'm surprised Ziggy's the underdog, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I would have thought that would be a pick 'em, honestly. But yeah, we'll rock with what it is, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Fletcher took it. I liked all the guys on the Ultimate Fighter this year, and him being one of them, both of them being on there.
Yeah, so. they weren't all that bad. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, they were all good guys, pretty much. I mean, with rare exception, but yeah, good group of dudes.
All right, next, this is a big comeback for Dylan Budka. I mean, this is a really big comeback.
And I know that you've got a lot of opinions about him. So
yeah, dude, he sucks, bro. But anyway, I mean, he's 7-3. I mean, Andre Petroski is not like some dude who's on the golden path up. Like, this is a very winnable fight for both of them, really. Budka, you might be just, I don't know. That might be the case if you lose Andre Petroski and he knocks you out or something like that. No, actually, Petroski's a wrestler. It might be, wait a minute. This is a wrestling matchup. What the frick? Yeah. Isn't this? Hold on. They're both freestyle wrestlers. What the frick? Ugh.
No, anyway. Yeah. I mean, this would be a wrestle heavy match for sure. Petroski, who you might remember, we've talked about on this show as being the dude who got knocked out by the hip bone of Jacob Malkoun. So just something to note there. Petroski is a dude who I think that he's got a little bit of a chin issue. This will be a wrestle heavy fight though, so potential there for him to be the better wrestler. This could also be a very slow, very plodding, and very boring fight. There's potential for that too. Hopefully it'll be entertaining. He is a pretty heavy favorite, Petroski is. So this, like you said, this is a fight that, like, for Petroski, who's had such a spotty record and has been kind of all over the place, not really getting a great deal of forward momentum. I think that this is a fight that he really needs to win. Even though he's coming off of a win, he got that win out in Denver. But that, I mean, you need to establish a record of winning. You know, that I think is what is lacking for Petroski right now. Like these like squeak by wins and somewhat sloppy performances, plus the chin issue. It's just you're creating a narrative about yourself that you don't want. So go out there and get a really solid win over a dude who's, you know, taken some losses recently, and show that you don't deserve to be in that category.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next. I love this fight. This fight,
my girl from Ohio. Damn her! Why'd they have to put her up against my fucking queen?
Yo,
shit.
Yeah, this is Jacqueline Amorim versus Vanessa Demopoulos. This has potential to be a really, really great fight right here. Demopoulos is fucking tough as shit. She is a really one of, like, we talk about being willing to take a punch to give one. She is that to a T, man. She will go in there and fucking brawl like nobody's business. Amorim, on the other hand, is a fantastic BJJ artist. So, I mean, this is really a Styles makes fights kind of deal. I mean, take your pick as to what you think is going to win out on that. I mean, you know, I would think that the jiu-jitsu has the potential to overcome the ferocity on the feet, but that's not always how it goes. So,
yeah, this one, I mean, heavy favorite for Jacqueline, but women's MMA, you can never be too sure. And I don't know if I can bet against my Ohio native. Like, that's, I don't know, man, but she really is my girl. Like, oh,
yeah, it's a tough day. You know, it's the heart is pulled in multiple directions. I mean, they've got. I'm surprised that the odds are as they are. I mean, Amorim is a very heavy favorite here, comparatively. But
after one fight, I'm pretty sure too.
Yeah, right. I mean,
last one was her debut, so maybe they're just riding high on the hype train. But Vanessa, she's had like 3 or 4 fights. Oh no, okay, no, Jacqueline's been here for a little bit. Okay. I mean, 2023, but I feel like I've seen Vanessa come in here and do her thing more than I've seen Jacqueline, but that's just me.
Oh, for sure. No, yeah. She's definitely had more fights. But I mean, the BJJ in that last fight from Amarim was just so. I mean, like it. Not only was it effective, but it was just so technically proficient. I mean, like she is just extremely high level for such a young, newer fighter. I think that there's potential there for this to live up to the numbers, but if she keeps it on the feet at all, then she's going to be in real dangerous territory. I would suspect that you're going to see Amarim going for the takedown rather early.
I'm ready. I am ready to see it.
Yeah, but so who are you going with?
I'll take Vanessa. I'll actually take Vanessa on this one. I have no allegiance.
Fair enough. All right, I'm going to go with Amarim on that one. We didn't do the last one. Who are you going with, Petrosky and Bodka?
Probably Petrosky.
Yeah, same. I mean, going with favorites heavy, but
I would not be surprised though.
Yeah, favorites for a reason for some of these. All right, so
this one I don't really have much to say. I'll probably take China.
Yisha. I mean, Yisha versus Santos. I don't know if I'm familiar with either of them off rip.
Road to the UFC.
Oh, okay, I got you. Fair.
I might take him. Not gonna lie, as a dog.
But... Oh yeah, as a plus 200, probably not a bad move. But going up against a Brazilian, see how his jiu-jitsu is. There, take the more skilled country generally, but I don't know. That's one I haven't done my homework on that one specifically. But this next fight, though, this is another one that I saw when I was looking over these before we started the stream. I was like, I can't wait for this fight. This is going to be a great one. This is Dos Santos versus Lima. So Dos Santos, I believe, is the dude that fought Manel Kopp.
Lost to Manel. That's the only loss.
Lost to Manel, but if you watch that fight back, that loss was not a terrible loss for him. I mean, he was a dog in that fight. And he was coming in on short notice in that fight.
Gotcha.
I remember saying at the time that he's got a lot of potential to be, to be a much better regarded fighter than that fight would lead you to believe on paper. Going up against Andre Lima, who is, he's going to forever be associated with the bite. That's just going to always kind of be there, as the dude who got bit. But either way, he was doing some really nice work in that fight before that happened. His last fight, not as good. So I think that this is a good shot for Dos Santos to show out again.
I would like to say that I don't believe that Andre Lima is as good. Like when I watched him in the Contender series, and we've seen him in that last one, and obviously the DQ too. Geez, he's actually racking up fights that we've seen him in. I'm still not sold. I'm still not sold on some glorious talent. So if you think Felipe was doing pretty good against Manel, a plus 150 might not be too crazy. That's not a crazy dog.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the numbers aren't super heavy on either side, but it could be. Yeah, exactly. Once we get closer, that'll probably tighten up pretty close. I would go with Dos Santos. That would be my choice.
Holy shit, I just saw the odds for the next fight.
Wowzers. Yeah, Bulgarian versus...
Kind of warranted. I do like my guy, Isaac.
Yeah. Bulgarian, he looked really nice in his last one, but good Lord, minus 3,000?
Yeah.
Wowzers, that's a price tag.
That is nutty. Oh, now, okay. You know what's crazy, man? Christian fucking Rodriguez is the reason this dude is not undefeated. And because he robbed him. I remember this and I will not let it go that he robbed Isaac Bulgarian. And the fact that they want to give him a minus 3,000 tag just to probably pull some dumb shit is whatever. So I'm going sub or decision for my boy Isaac. That one's an easy one.
Fair enough. And he's fighting Brendan Marat.
He lost to Terrence McKinney, so obviously can't be great.
Yeah, I think that's probably warranted. Let's we'll see what happens, but throw a little straight money on him just to have something for that kind of a tag. Because I mean, good Lord, plus 1,100. That's insanity if he's able to pull that off. But yeah, I mean, I would think that Bulgarian, like you said, that fight with Rodriguez is not representative of the skill set, and I'm sure that he'll be able to come in here and show out the true skills.
Yeah.
All
Next
right.
one.
Span versus OSP. OSP, who we were just talking about on 217, back again for whatever fucking reason. I think that this dude probably needs to retire at this point, but this is kind of an old man's fight right here. Ryan Span, another dude who is not, I mean, his time is the sun is starting to set on him and OSP kind of simultaneously. I think that Span can probably pull out a win in this one. I hate to keep going with all of these favorites, but based on just the OSP of now, I mean I don't. It would be a little bit crazy. Like like Ryan Spann needs to win this fight. Like if he wants to stick around, because his last fight, like he got annihilated.
By Gushkov.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I want to say this fight is just the battle of the dudes with the Superman tattoo. That's about it.
Does OSP have one too?
He's got it right on his arm. Yep, he's got a Superman tattoo right where his brandings are.
Oh, right where the brands are. Okay, my bad. I didn't realize that. All right,
and then
fair
we
enough.
got Ryan Superspan. So
yes, Superman Span. I mean, yeah, I don't know. This is another one of those ones. Like you see the records, 21-10 versus 27-17. Obviously, they've been around for a while. Obviously, they've been kind of checkered. That's why they are. The featured prelim of this event. I hope it's a decent fight. I'm not really expecting too much out of this fight, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I feel you.
All right, moving on to Padilla versus Rongzhu.
Yeah, another one where I'm probably just taking China.
Yeah, I think that probably, gut reaction, gut feeling. This is CJ Padilla, I believe.
Chris.
Oh, Chris Padilla. Okay. And he's the dude. Yeah, he was the dude that subbed Yontop in that last fight.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
well, maybe a good dog here. Hold on.
Potentially good dog, but you got to keep in mind that Yontop. I don't know, bro. I just think the guy is a little bit bummy personally. Based on what I've seen of him, I've never been too impressed with him in the fights that I've seen.
Then this is another road to the UFC guy. So
I mean, well then, yeah, I would say that's probably a decent dog then. Again, road to the UFC is another one that's like, to me, the road to the UFC is like the Contender Series light. You know what I mean? Like it's tournament style. It's a little bit different. I know that, but like I say that to say you're fighting the best of emerging markets. So even from that, you're like, you know what I mean? You're already still slightly a little bit lower. It just in my opinion, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to dog any of the guys on there, and I'm sure that there have been some decent guys to come out of it, but you're fighting the best of what's already somewhat lower. So I coming into the actual organization, I think it's a way different beast. If the Contender Series is already a different beast, this is a lot more different than the road to the UFC.
Yeah, most of the people that I've seen come out of road to the UFC are like, it's like grappler's paradise kind of guys. Like I haven't seen many real killers, not too much. Like,
yeah. So, I would say that there's probably some potential in the dog on that one. I mean, the guy is 25-5 though. He's been around. He's been fighting for a while.
Oh, yeah, true.
But who has he fought? That's always the question. All right, moving on. We've got Trevor Peak versus is that Yishmael, I believe? Yanal. Yeah, Yanal Ashmuz.
From Israel, wow.
From Israel, yeah. One of the few Israeli fighters, him and Natan Levy representing Israel. Is Ashmuz the dude? Did he fight on the London card? Is he the dude that I'm
Christian
thinking? Yes.
Leroy Duncan?
Yeah, he fought CLD on the London card. Yeah, and he looked terrible in that fight. So I don't know if that was just a bad night for him. He was 6-0 up until that point. He was
7-0.
Yeah, 7-0. 7-0 up until that point. So I don't know if that was just an off night for him or if he's just been, again, fighting competition that is a little bit below the standard of the UFC coming out of an emerging market that Israel is. He's fighting Trevor Peak, who has, he's got those 2 losses, but the guy is a little bit of a dog, though.
Yeah, he is fun to watch, and there's a reason that he's got a 6-fight contract coming up, and they just gave him a lob on the first fucking leg of it, so he's ready to get going.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that it's even money on Ashmuz is kind of surprising to me. That's already a tight line going into it. So I mean, I don't know why this is as tight as it is, but Yeah, I mean, just based off of history and all of the other factors with him being out of Israel, I think that the majority of the factors lead towards Peak. It would be my gut at least.
Yeah, for sure. 100% I'm putting money on that dude.
Yeah, Matt Schnell back
He's
again.
losing.
I don't, man. I feel bad like just having that be the initial like gut reaction. I mean, fighting
A
Alessandro
5'4" dude.
Costa,
That is crazy though.
yeah, who is candy canes in his last five. So I
He
mean,
beat Kevin Borjas though.
yeah, that's a decent win.
But they
Got
both
knocked.
lost to Steve Erceg. Jesus.
Oh yeah, he wasn't the dude that got knocked out by Steve Erceg, but did lose in his decision. So
Mm-hmm.
and then lost. I mean, his losses are good losses though. That
No,
is
Matt
true.
Schnell is the dude that got knocked out by Steve Erceg.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. How about that? So, um, yeah. So I mean, a loss to Amir Albazi, number
And
two.
Erceg, that maybe is not looking too bad. He might be pretty decent.
Yeah. So fair enough. I guess then that makes sense to go for him. But yeah, I mean, Schnell just, man, it hurts to think that he could have been like just better. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really like. There was a time where I was like, Schnell might actually be somebody.
Yeah.
All right. So Steve Garcia back again after a fantastic knockout. Man has the most knockouts, or he's on the longest active knockout streak, I believe, in the UFC currently. Gotta love that stat versus
Yeah, he's
Kyle
gonna
Nelson.
continue it.
You think so? I mean,
Yeah.
I gotta believe it. I don't. I mean, I don't know if he ends up getting the knockout. Nelson is a tough guy, but I mean, I gotta ride with my man Steve. The one thing that I always noted about Steve Garcia is that for a dude who doesn't necessarily look like he's he's not a physical specimen. The guy walks around with 10-ton balls, bro. This guy, he is so composed in the cage. He doesn't look like anything phases him. I mean, he's in there like, I'm going in, I'm going to get this win. That's the end of the story. Now, does that actually end up equaling the win? He's got 5 losses, so it's not necessarily 100% accurate. Now, Nelson could wrestle him. I mean, that could be the deal. If Nelson can get in on him, grab the legs early, get into the ground, there is potential for that because Nelson is a pretty decent wrestler, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, Garcia, I hesitate to say it's a lock, but man, I just want to see the streak keep going. So I mean, my heart's there. We'll see what ends up happening. I got to lean towards Garcia with a potential for a sub by Nelson. That would be my initial thoughts. All right, co-main event of this thing is Jessica Andrade versus Natalia Silva. I just don't care about this fight, to be perfectly honest. This is yet another female co-main event that just doesn't inspire me. I just don't like Jessica Andrade, to be perfectly honest. Like not as a person. She's a fine person, whatever. I don't like her fight style very much. Like I think that she's tough, she's strong, she's just not very great. What I mean? Like I guess that's just the best way to put it.
So it's funny that I look at one side of this. I'm like, Natalie Silva, however the fuck you say that shit.
So
Wow,
Natalia, yeah.
Yeah, for co-main event, that's kind of crazy. But then on the opposite side, you have Jessica Andrade, who definitely deserves co-main event spot. Which that's a viewpoint of somebody who understands that this 5'1" lady who has the most knockouts in history. I understand that, but if you're sitting here saying you don't like it and you've been watching the sport for this long and you don't even think the co-main event spot is something that you care about for, that's okay.
Okay, well let me flesh that out a little bit then to make it to expound upon that. I was very high on Jessica Andrade early in her career. I thought that she had champion potential. Honestly, I thought that she was one that
makes you wonder how she never got the belt. Like if she's knocked out fucking 20 women, like wow.
I mean, yeah, she's good when she's fighting lower competition. That's sad to say. That's really what my assessment has come down to at this point. She's let me down so many times that I'm just like she's another one that it's like every time I want to believe, she just lets me down. So it's not that I don't think that she deserves that spot as the co-main. It's fine that she's there. Natalia Silva, I mean, she's been doing her thing, right? Like she's on a streak. Yeah, I mean, she's got some decent wins here. Viviane Araújo is a decent one. Andrea Lee, not bad. Leonardo, that's I mean, I don't think that that's a great win, but it's a win nonetheless. This is not undeserved. She's won all of, her last five. She's, 5 for 5 in her last five. So it's not that this fight does not make sense as a co-main. I want it to be entertaining, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be. I think that Andrade has gotten very clinch heavy whenever she's in dangerous situations. That's just a general note about her style as of late. And then she's able to be controlled now. I mean, like I think people are starting to figure her out a little bit more. If you don't let her stay at range, if you don't let her get her striking off, if Silva gets her on her back, it's just going to be a lot of groundwork, and hopefully she can get a sub. But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So
We'll
that's
see.
my overall impression. Look, like I said, I don't dislike Jessica Andrade as a person or anything. It's not a personal assessment, but she's let me down so many times that I definitely, I'm staying away from betting on this fight unless I put a little money on Silva, and I do that, and then she's going to win the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those kinds of situations. She's in the Angela Hill camp in that regard, but I don't know. Just make it entertaining is all I want. I don't really think that I guess Silva, maybe there could be some title implications for her. I don't know where she's ranked. I would assume she's ranked if she's fighting this.
If you notice, she's actually, look at the weight that she has. So I think she's going down a weight class. So rankings might change for her. She might be different.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so, okay. I mean, maybe so there you go. Maybe that's at least something to make it interesting. But, just hopefully it'll be an entertaining fight. That's all I want. And then honestly, I would like to see Andrade come into her full form if she's ever going to. That is where it's at with her. Because if she does not start showing out in a definitive way and consistently, then I'm like, you're 32, you're still right there to be in the conversation if you want to be, but you got to win these fights. It's fundamental shit.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And finally, last but not least, Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. Sean knocked out by Bilal Muhammad Brady versus Gilbert Burns, recently knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena. What do you think about this fight?
Sean Brady getting knocked out by Bilal with Canelo's boxing. It doesn't look that bad anymore. It really doesn't. Bilal's the champ. Sean Brady can make a big comeback here because I feel like the odds are going to flip. I feel like by the time the fight comes, and clip this, that Gilbert Burns, we're going to watch all these edits of him, all these funny memes, and people are going to flip to the Gilbert Burns hype train and forget that Sean Brady's kind of a sleeper. I mean, 16-0 until the champion, the now. So, I mean, and he's a wrestler too. It's a style that we don't like to see. What the fuck was the name? Joe Pyfer just came on and said this is the best wrestler in the UFC right here. So why would he not wrestle fuck Gilbert Burns? Gilbert Burns doesn't submit people anymore. I can see easy decision for Sean Brady.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I don't
see. Here goes Shiloh.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it'll flip, bro.
Yeah. I think that. I think that that's an accurate assessment. I mean, look, Bilal. Striking aside, I mean, it's always going to be tainted by the knockout coming from Bilal. The only thing I would worry about with that is, he can talk about Canelo's boxing all he fucking wants after the fights are done. Was the shot as strong as that? I mean, I guess it was to knock him out, but it gives me a little bit of a concern about his chin. I mean, it's the only one, and I'm sure he's taken some heavy shots in his time, so could have just been a lucky shot, whatever the case may be there. I would just be a little bit concerned about that. I know you talk a lot about Grant Dawson. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about right here too.
So there you go. It comes to mind in this case as well. Gilbert Burns, high level guy in his time. I think that he's 38 years old. I think it's starting to slip a little bit away from him. I mean, there was a time that people were talking about Gilbert possibly being a champ. I mean, that was the conversation was surrounding him for a little while there. And I mean, I after the knockout that he suffered against Jack, I mean, that was a heavy knockout, man. I don't know. If it's going to change him at all. I don't want to believe that it's going to. Plenty of people have been knocked out pretty heavy and come back just fine. Bobby Green is a prime example of that, speaking of Dawson. But, so I don't know. This one's, I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it has the potential to be very wrestle heavy. And if it does flip, then I think that honestly, I would take the dog on either way. Really, I would put a straight on the dog either way. And if you have a definitive feeling one way or another, go with your gut. But to me, it's way more of a pick 'em than these odds are showing, even though it is pretty close.
100%.
Seen it's plus 150, too big a flip unless it goes to a pick 'em. Yeah, so there you go. That's pretty much it. JDM's defense was immaculate in that fight, doing escapes from backsitting. I've never seen before. Yeah, I mean, so, good stuff for JDM, but how does that translate to this fight? You know what I mean? Like, is Sean Brady going to be able to do that exact same thing? Who knows? And also, again, we got to see what version of Gilbert shows up at this point, because time is ticking here. I really I never really was super hot on him to begin with, and he sort of proved me right over time. This is kind of like a now or never sort of fight as well. Like, I kind of almost put him in the same camp slightly as I would with Jared Cannonier.
Yeah, for sure.
Jared Cannonier just had that make or break fight with Kaio, didn't go his way. I'm somewhat thinking that there's the potential for that to happen to Gilbert here. So my gut is saying Brady, but I would just take the dog. Honestly, I'm going to put some straight money on the dog either way.
There we go. You heard it here first.
Absolutely. Still coping over money you lost on Gilbert against JDM. Hey, brother, we all have to take those losses, my man. That's the name of the game. There have been so many parlays that have gotten busted so horribly over fights that you thought had locks. So either way, whatever happens, folks, we will be here next Monday to talk about everything that happens on the fight night, Burns versus Brady. So come back, check us out on Monday nights. We generally start at 9 o'clock. If not 9 o'clock, it will be later than 9 o'clock. And I will always let you know the start time on Twitter and on Instagram. You can catch myself and the Vitz King for the watch along on Saturday. We will be streaming, watching along with these fights. And Chase generally does some watch alongs too. And I know, Chase, that you can tell them where they can find you.
You can find me streaming on Saturdays when there's UFC events on youtube.com/@CPSmalls. And it'll be a good time there. I hope to see you there, man. It'll be a good one.
Absolutely. Check out my boy over there. Watch over here with me and Vitz King. Have both open, just in different tabs. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we will be back next Monday to break it all down for you. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Enjoy the fights, and we will catch you in the next stream. Fight on.
DWCS.